You've carried it for too long. The silence, the weight no one could see. You smiled when they looked, but inside, there was only that quiet ache, that space where no one ever came looking. And somewhere along the way, you stopped hoping that someone would. Because every time you tried to explain, it was either just be strong or worse. Maybe you're just overthinking it. But how do you explain drowning in a sea no one else believes is there? How do you scream when even your voice has learned to be polite? You didn't break, you bent. Over and over again. You learned how to disappear while staying visible, and you thought that made you resilient. But I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear it. Not just with your ears, but with whatever part of you is still listening beneath the noise. You didn't survive because you're strong. You survived because no one gave you permission to fall apart. You made it through nights no one knew about. Woke up from dreams you couldn't tell anyone, and you kept walking, quietly, carefully, as if your soul were made of glass. And it was. Still is. That's not weakness. That's sacred. I know there were moments where you wanted someone to just hold your gaze and say, I see it. All of it. And you're not crazy. You're not too much. You're just hurting in a world that forgot how to listen. Maybe no one ever said that to you. So let me say it now. I see it. All of it. Every cracked part of you. Every time you held in the tears because you didn't want to be a burden. Every time you clutched at your own chest, hoping the pain would just go away quietly. Every version of you that had to grow up too fast, forgive too quickly, pretend too well. I see you. Not the mask, not the act. You. And even if the world made you feel invisible, your pain is real, your longing is valid, and your heart, even in its exhaustion, is still holy. You don't need to prove anything. Not here, not to me, not anymore. There is nothing wrong with you. I need you to hear that again and again until it begins to loosen the grip of that voice inside, the one that was never yours to begin with. That voice that told you you're lazy, broken, unworthy. That voice that measured your worth by your output, your usefulness, your smile. But you were never meant to be a machine. You were never meant to be endlessly productive, endlessly positive, endlessly okay. You were meant to be real. And being real means breaking sometimes. It means aching. It means not knowing who you are when the lights go off and the masks fall away. It means walking through shadows without pretending they're not there. And if you've been there, if you've wandered through nights that felt like they would never end, then know this. Those weren't your failures. Those were baptisms. You weren't falling apart. You were shedding. The old expectations, the lies, the shame that was never yours. You were not meant to carry all of that. Somewhere, someone should have said, I'm sorry they made you believe you had to. So I'll say it now. I'm sorry. Sorry for the weight they gave you, for the roles you never chose, for the silence they mistook for strength, for the way they looked right through your pain because it made them uncomfortable, for every time you shrunk yourself to fit their comfort zones. You were never too much. You were just never mirrored. That's all. You are not unlovable. You were just unseen. And it's hard to bloom when no one reflects your light back to you, but it's still there. That light, flickering beneath the ashes, waiting, not for someone to save you, but for you to finally look inward and say, I remember who I was before the world told me who to be. And maybe today is not the day you rise fully. Maybe you're still gathering the pieces. That's okay. Healing isn't a straight line. It's not a checklist, it's a sacred unraveling, a gentle reclaiming of your tears, your voice, your softness, your wildness, your anger, your joy. All of it is holy. All of it is yours. You're allowed to not be okay. You're allowed to rest, to not explain, to not perform. You're allowed to be tired and not feel guilty for it. You've earned your rest 1,000 times over. And even now as you listen, weary, perhaps skeptical, perhaps silently hoping this is more than just poetic noise, know this. Your presence matters. Your pain matters. You matter. Not because of what you do, but because of what you are. A soul. Still breathing, still becoming, still here. And that in itself is a quiet miracle. Do you remember who you were before you were told who to be? Before the masks? Before the expectations? Before the world handed you a script and said, play this role or you won't be loved? Maybe you've forgotten. Maybe life made you forget. Because survival teaches us to trade truth for safety, and little by little you became someone the world applauded, but not someone your soul recognized. And now, here you are. Not broken, not lost, just waiting for something real. Something soft enough to hold your sorrow, but strong enough to walk you home. Home, not as a place, but as a self. Yourself. The one you left behind to become acceptable. But here's the thing, that self never stopped calling you. It whispered in the quiet. It bled through your dreams. It cried in the spaces you thought were empty. And if you've been aching lately, restless, emotional, unmotivated, maybe it's not depression. Maybe it's your truth, knocking. Maybe the sadness isn't a sign of failure, but of returning. Maybe you're not meant to push through, but to soften into what's been waiting all along. Your own being, your realness, your forgotten name. And no, it's not too late. I don't care how many masks you wore, how long you played a part. I don't care if you feel too far gone. There's no distance the soul cannot cross. It remembers, even if you've forgotten. It remembers the laughter that came from your gut, the tears that were never shameful, the dreams you tucked away like fragile glass. And it's okay that you don't know how to begin. Beginning isn't a ceremony. It's a breath, a whisper, a single choice to stop running from yourself. What if today you let go, not of everything, but just enough to breathe a little deeper? What if you stopped asking, what's wrong with me, and started asking, what have I been carrying that was never mine? What if the problem was never you, but the idea that you had to become someone else to be loved? You don't need fixing, you need remembering. You don't need saving, you need space to feel, and you don't need permission to come home. That door was never locked, you just forgot where it was. So let me remind you. It's inside, always has been, and right now, as your heart beats quietly behind the ribs you've used as armor, maybe it's time to lay the sword down, to breathe, to listen, to answer the call that has always been yours. You don't have to earn your way back to yourself. You don't need to perform healing like a job. There is no checklist that says now you are worthy of peace. You already are, even in your mess, especially in your mess. Healing isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming honest, real. It's about letting yourself unravel just enough to see what's been buried underneath all that pretending, and maybe that scares you. Of course it does. Because the last time you were fully yourself, it hurt. Maybe someone mocked your sensitivity, maybe they used your honesty against you, maybe your joy was too bright for those still living in shadows. And so you dimmed, not because you were weak, but because you were wise. You learned to protect the softest parts of you, but now you're older, and maybe you're tired of protecting. Maybe you're ready to live again, not as a version, but as a whole. The truth is, you've outgrown the role you were cast in. You're not who they needed you to be. You never were. You're something deeper, something wild and gentle and fierce and free. You are the unspoken poem that never fit inside anyone's lines. And it's time to stop editing yourself for rooms that could never hold you. I know that feels like a death, and in a way it is. The death of the mask. The death of the narrative, where your only value came from being useful, agreeable, small. But what if I told you that behind that death is birth? What if this breakdown is a breakthrough in disguise? What if all the emotions you've been feeling lately, the grief, the numbness, the longing, are not setbacks, but signals? What if they're proof that something inside you is waking up? That you are not spiraling, you are shedding skin, growing a new nervous system, one that's not built on fear and compliance, but on truth and connection. And it's okay if you don't know what that looks like yet. This is sacred ground, and sacred things grow slowly. Let your soul be awkward. Let your new life be tender. Let it unfold without a plan. No more rushing. No more pretending. No more running back to cages just because they're familiar. You're allowed to not know. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to begin again. As many times as it takes. You don't have to leap. You don't have to roar. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is whisper, "I'm still here," and mean it. Still here, after all the storms, after the betrayals, after the nights you thought would break you. You're still here, maybe cracked but not ruined, maybe weary but not gone. And that matters, more than anyone ever told you, because presence is power, not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, grounded, breath-by-breath kind. The kind that says, even if I don't have answers, I won't abandon myself again. And that is holy. That is the beginning of everything. You don't need a 10-step plan to heal. You need permission to stop running, to stop trying so hard to be what you were never meant to be. Let the false roles die. Let the expectations fall like leaves. Let your soul breathe for the first time in years. No more becoming. Just being. Just being. Can you feel the difference? One is exhausting. The other is sacred. You don't need to fix your heart. You need to listen to it. You don't need to transcend your humanity. You need to inhabit it. Fully. Tenderly, as if it were enough. Because it is. You are. And even now, even if you still feel tangled in fear or doubt, know this: you're allowed to move slowly. You're allowed to not have a vision. You're allowed to rebuild your life from softness instead of striving. You are allowed to be a beginner again. Not because you failed, but because you finally stopped pretending. That's what real transformation is. Not fireworks, not overnight change, but quiet courage. The courage to say, maybe I don't know where I'm going, but I trust myself to keep walking. That's enough. That's everything. And if all you do today is breathe, that is worthy. If all you do today is feel, that is sacred. If all you do is not give up, that is miraculous. Because this world has tried again and again to crush you into a version of yourself that fits its mold. And you're still here, still unbecoming what was never truly you, still daring to listen to your own rhythm, still holding space for the life that wants to emerge through you, not in spite of your scars, but because of them. That is not weakness, that is rebirth. Maybe healing doesn't look like rising from the ashes with a roar. Maybe it looks like sitting in the quiet with your grief and whispering, "You're welcome here." Maybe the true miracle is not how fast you move forward, but how gently you hold what hurt. There is a kind of strength in softness, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that walks barefoot through the ruins and still plants seeds. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. Becoming someone you've never had the chance to be before. Someone who no longer abandons themselves to be understood. Someone who no longer betrays their own needs to avoid being alone. Someone who realizes that solitude can be sacred and that loneliness can sometimes be the doorway to deep truth. This path isn't linear. It curves. It circles back. It pauses in places that feel uncomfortable until your nervous system learns how to rest there. That's not regression. That's integration, and you are doing it. Even when it feels slow, even when no one claps for your small victories, even when the world seems to keep spinning while you sit still, you are not meant to rush this. You are meant to live it, fully, honestly, gently. This is your soul's timing, not society's timeline. And the fact that you are even listening to these words means that something inside you is waking up, something real, something ancient, something that remembers a life before you were taught to doubt yourself. And that part of you, the remembering part, is enough. You don't need to become extraordinary. You already are. In the way you feel deeply, in the way you keep showing up, in the way you've survived things no one knows about, in the way you dare to believe that life can still be meaningful even after everything. So let this be your revolution, to move slowly, to love what is fragile, to feel what is real, to honor the life that is already yours, not the one you were taught to chase, but the one that was whispering to you even in silence. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that the healing you were seeking was never somewhere far away. It was in your breath, in your tears, in your willingness to begin again. You made it, not to the finish line, but to this breath, and that matters. Because so much of your life has been spent striving, proving, surviving. But this is different. This is arriving in your own body, in your own truth, in a moment that doesn't demand more from you, but offers you rest. And maybe for the first time, you feel it, that stillness inside. Not empty, but full of everything you were too busy, too afraid, too hurt to feel. And now it's here. The grief, the gratitude, the beauty, the ache, the past, the present, all of it held in the sacred bowl of now. And here's the miracle. You didn't have to fix yourself to get here. You only had to stop abandoning yourself. You only had to stay. Stay with your breath, stay with your heart, stay with the life that's been quiet waiting for your permission to begin again. This is the holy place. Not after success, not after healing, but right here, in the middle of it all. And maybe that's the point, that there is no after, just a deeper now. A now where you no longer need to shrink. A now where you no longer owe anyone a performance. A now where your softness is not a liability but your strength. A now where you choose again and again to live in alignment with your soul, not your shame. And so, as you take this breath and then the next, let it be a homecoming. Let it be enough. Let it be sacred. You are not what you've lost. You are not what you've endured. You are what you've carried. You are what you've tended to in the silence. You are the prayer that kept whispering even when you stopped believing. And you are the answer to that prayer, not by becoming someone else, but by returning to who you always were. The light, the vessel, the whole. Welcome home.